Hello and welcome to the interview here on France 24. My guest today is Nelson Chamisa. He is the leader of the Movement for Democratic Change, the main opposition party in Zimbabwe. He joins us from Harare. Thank you very much for being on the show, Mr. Chamisa.
Thank you, Mark.
Mr. Chamisa, you claim that you won the presidential election held last July instead of Emmerson Mnangagwa. Mr. Mnangagwa has accused your party, the MDC, of orchestrating, I quote him, a regime change operation through protests last month with the support of foreign money and NGOs. What is your response to those very serious accusations?
Well, those are accusations by a misplaced appreciation of the facts in Zimbabwe. We are very clear. We do not subscribe to violence. We have been in existence for 19 years. As a party, this year, we're actually celebrating our 20th year of existence, and we've never subscribed to any violent confrontation, but we believe in peaceful, non-violent politics, which has been the hallmark of our politics, including my predecessor, Dr. Richard Morgan Tsvangirai, the late. So clearly what Mr. Mnangagwa is saying is an indication of how out of touch he is with the reality of what is happening in the country. He has chosen to institutionalize, deceiving the world, deceiving the people, and deceiving himself. Because the clarity with which we have looked at this issue is that the problem in Zimbabwe, which we have seen, has been occasioned by deficits and omissions by government, particularly the price hikes of fuel by 150%, which was instituted by Mr. Mnangagwa. What then triggered action by citizens in a non-violent manner. Of course, we had an instance of violence here, which we condemned, which we do not subscribe to, but citizens heeded to the core by the Zimbabwe Congress of Trade Union, which is the trade union body in the country, not the MDC. And why Mr. Mnangagwa chooses to look at the MDC and pick on the MDC baffles the mind. What is clear is that this action was a trade union action, which was responding to events of the announcement by Mr. Mnangagwa himself of the fuel increment. And we've said, let this be very clear. We are not working with any foreign power. We are not working with any international organization or any donor organization. If anything, the struggle for change in Zimbabwe, the struggle for freedom and democracy is underwritten by the people of Zimbabwe without any support from anyone. But of course, we welcome the solidarity of the international community and people of the world who feel that the people of Zimbabwe need freedom, need total freedom and total change. And this is the only connection we've had with the international community. As far as we are concerned, great leaders are supposed to solve problems, not explain problems. Mr. Mnangagwa is explaining problems. He's not solving the problem. And this is why we have said, please come to your senses, come to the party, and let us reason together and resolve problems affecting Zimbabwe instead of finger pointing. Well, then you forget that 4 of your fingers are pointing at yourself.
I interviewed recently President Mnangagwa, and I put to him that there had been extrajudicial killings, rapes by security forces. He vividly denied this. Have you strong evidence that crimes were committed and crimes that could make Mr. Mnangagwa liable before courts, even international courts?
Well, Mr. Mnangagwa knows the truth. He is supposed to be receiving information. He has the evidence. He knows what happened. In fact, just last week, he made a public statement to say that he was aware of the developments in the country, the happenings in the country, including the violence that we saw against innocent citizens and armed civilians. That information is there. They are credible, independent institutions within the country. The Zimbabwe Human Rights Commission, even, which is supposed to be independent as part of the government constitutionally, created, bodies, are very clear. They have this information documented of what happened, who did what. So I don't understand why Mr. Mnangagwa would come and say he's not aware or that he was not responsible. If he is claiming to be in charge of the affairs of the state, he must also account for the affairs and developments and actions of the state. That is very clear. I don't understand why we would want to even talk about evidence, because we have 17 people whose names are known. And if there is genuine desire to get to the bottom of this matter, let there be an investigation. That investigation has not been called for. You are aware that we had similar occasion in August 2018, on the 1st of August, when people were killed. 6 of Zimbabwean citizens were killed. Nothing was done until there was a commission by the Motlanthe-led commission. But now we have seen that there is no such a commission, clearly indicating that there's no willingness on the part of Mr. Mnangagwa and his administration to get to the bottom of the matter and also to hold people to account, including himself. Because what was done is obviously extra-constitutional. The Constitution does not allow the taking away of life. The Constitution does not allow the killing of people. Even if people turn violent, there are ways of dealing with violent elements, which we do condemn.
I just want to put to you what his predecessor, Robert Mugabe, on the occasion of his 95th birthday, he also said that some people think, I'm quoting him, that being a leader means killing people, but that is not the way. It is not the task of the army to lead people with guns. Let us not be killers of our own people. What do you make of those accusations coming from a man who has himself been accused of such crimes in the past?
Well, I must say that there is no better person who knows Mr. Mnangagwa better than Mr. Mugabe. Mr. Mnangagwa was Mr. Mugabe's sidekick for a long time. They were working together, and he was the chief enforcer of Mr. Mugabe's decision. So clearly, from the possibility of what we have, we are seeing that what is obtaining is that Mr. Mnangagwa is just having a confession coming from his former master on what his omissions and commissions are. And of course, he's getting instructions from his former leader to say what you are now doing seems to have exceeded even what he used to do when he was head of state. So we are clearly seeing a confirmation of what every citizen is saying, what the international community is saying, that clearly once you start to resort to killing your own citizens, that's crossing the line, and that's over the board.
Right. You have refused repeatedly a dialogue offered by Mr. Mnangagwa. I also read reports that just this weekend you had allegedly made an offer whereby you would share power, 2 years you, 2 years him. Can you clarify exactly what your stance is?
Very much. We are very clear that the crisis in Zimbabwe is a crisis of government. The crisis in Zimbabwe is the national question and the national dilemma of a leadership crisis arising out of a disputed election. That crisis of confidence, that crisis of trust has to be cured and resolved. How do we resolve it? Let there be an inclusive, credible dialogue of the key players and the key stakeholders. And we have said to Mr. Mnangagwa, we are ready anytime, any hour to dialogue on the issues, because Zimbabweans are suffering. The economic situation is bad. Youth are unemployed. They need jobs. We have a medical situation out of control. There is no medicine. There are no drugs in the hospitals. People have no cash in their banks. People cannot be gainfully employed. The situation economically is not obtaining well in terms of the business people. So we need to cure this problem as of yesterday. But in order for us to have economic resolution of the crisis affecting the country, there has to be democratic consolidation. We must have reforms. How do we have reforms? Let's have meeting of minds by all the key players. And of course, we have said we are available for a credible and genuine dialogue.
But why have you refused his offer? Why have you refused to sit down with him?
Well, we have not refused any offer from him. He said he wanted to see all the contesting political parties, which is in a partisan manner, which is in a patronizing manner. We have said any dialogue has to be meaningful, led by an international interlocutor, by a credible, mutually acceptable,
Could that be the president of South Africa?
Well, South Africa would be ideal. SADC would be ideal. The African Union would be ideal. But we can't have Mr. Mnangagwa, who is part of the problem, wanting then to come and have his cake and eat it. You know, he is supposed to be part of the people who are on the dance floor, not for him to be on the balcony on the dance floor, being the referee and the player at the same time. It doesn't augur well in terms of the signals of sincerity on his part. And we've said these things have to be sorted out so that we conduce an environment for the kind of dialogue we want to see. Zimbabweans are suffering.
Did you offer a power-sharing agreement, 2 years you, 2 years him? Can you clarify that, please?
We have not offered any power-sharing agreement. We have said that let there be a transitional mechanism to resolve the obtaining fundamental questions we have put on the table. We have raised 5 fundamental issues that need resolution. The first one being the issue of illegitimacy. The second one, the issue of a comprehensive reform agenda. The third one is the issue of nation building, peace building, and making sure that there's national healing. The fourth one, international re-engagement on the basis of agreed timescales and also timetables, bound by an underwriting by the international community. Last but not least is an economic rescue program and a humanitarian response, because Zimbabweans are suffering. So these issues have to be resolved. But of course, for them to be resolved, it takes two to tango. And we've said we are available for a discussion, for a dialogue, and we are even willing to make sure that there is a sharing of this collective and common vision to resolve and answer to problems that are.
Okay, thank you very much, Nelson Chamisa, for joining us from Harare. And thank you very much for listening to this interview here on France 24.